Chapter 24. Yellowfang turned and pushed her way into the bracken. Whitestorm and the others followed her. Firepaw was tingling with excitement. He didn't feel the damp chill in the air, and his weariness was long forgotten. Yellowfang guided them to a small hollow surrounded by thick undergrowth and pointed out the entrance to the ShadowClan camp. The tangled mass of brambles looked very different from the neat gorse tunnel that led into the ThunderClan camp. The camp boundary was full of holes and gaps, and the stench of rotting meat wafted toward them. "You eat crow food?" whispered Graypaw, curling his lip. "Our warriors are used for attacking, not hunting," replied Ashfur. "We eat whatever we can find."
"ThunderClan, hide in that clump of bracken over there," hissed Yellowfang. "It's full of toadstools that will disguise your scent. Wait here till you hear me call."
She stepped back to let the other ShadowClan cats lead the way, tucking herself into the center of their group as though she were their prisoner. They headed silently into the camp. The ThunderClan cats settled themselves among the toadstools, tense and alert. Firepaw could feel his coat prickling. He looked at Graypaw beside him. The thick fur on the back of his friend's neck was standing on end, and Firepaw could hear him panting with suppressed excitement. Suddenly, yowling erupted from the ShadowClan camp. Without hesitating, the ThunderClan cats sprang from their hiding places and raced through the entrance. Yellowfang, Ashfur, Dawncloud, and Nightpelt were in a well-trodden, muddy clearing, wrestling with 6 vicious-looking warriors. Firepaw recognized Brokenstar and his deputy Blackfoot among them. The warriors looked hungry and battle-scarred, but Firepaw could see the hard muscles pounding beneath their patchy fur. Around the edge of the clearing, groups of scrawny cats stared uncertainly at the mayhem. Their skinny bodies seemed to recoil at the violence, while their dull eyes looked on, shocked and confused. Out of the corner of his eye, Firepaw saw Running Nose back away and hide beneath a bush. At Whitestorm's nodded signal, the ThunderClan cats leaped into the battle. Firepaw grasped a silver tabby with his claws, but was shaken loose. He tumbled over, and the ShadowClan warrior turned on him and gripped him with claws as sharp as blackthorns. Firepaw managed to twist and sink his teeth deep into the cat's flesh. The warrior's yowl told him he had found a tender spot, and he bit harder. The warrior screeched again, ripping himself free, and ran off into the bushes. Firepaw stood up. A young ShadowClan apprentice leaped at him from the edge of the camp, its soft kitten fur fluffed up with fear. Firepaw sheathed his claws and batted him away easily.
"This is not your battle," he hissed.
Whitestorm already had Blackfoot pinned to the ground. He gave him a vicious bite, and the injured deputy raced away toward the camp entrance and out into the safety of the forest.
"Firepaw!"
Firepaw heard Dawncloud screech his name.
"Watch out! Clawface is—"
He didn't hear the rest. A heavily built brown cat crashed into him. Clawface! Firepaw dug his claws into the ground and whirled around to fight. The warrior that killed Spotted Leaf. Rage surged through him, and he flung himself onto the brown tom. Firepaw pushed the warrior to the ground and pressed his head into the dirt. Blinded by fury, he prepared to sink his teeth into Clawface's neck. But before he could deal his death blow, Whitestorm knocked him aside and grasped the ShadowClan warrior.
"ThunderClan warriors do not kill unless they have to,"
he growled in Firepaw's ear.
"We just need to let them know not to show their faces here again."
He gave Clawface a fierce bite that sent him screaming out of the camp. Still raging, Firepaw looked around wildly. Brokenstar's warriors had gone. An angry screech sounded from behind Graypaw. Graypaw leaped out of the way, and Firepaw saw Yellowfang gripping Brokenstar with muddy, blood-stained paws. His body bled from several wounds. His ears were flattened against his head, and his whiskers were drawn back as he crouched, flattened beneath Yellowfang's powerful grasp.
"I never thought you would be harder to kill than my father,"
he snarled up at her. Yellowfang recoiled as if she had been stung by a bee, her face twisted suddenly by shock and grief. She loosened her grip on Brokenstar, and instantly he threw her aside with a twist of his powerful body.
"You killed Ragged Star?"
Yellowfang wailed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Brokenstar eyed her coldly.
"You found his body. Didn't you recognize my fur between his claws?"
Yellowfang stared in horror as he continued. He was a soft and foolish leader. He deserved to die.
No!
Hissed Yellowfang, her head dropping. Then she gave herself a shake. She looked up at Brokenstar, arching her back.
And Bright Flower's kits? Did they deserve to die too?
She rasped. Brokenstar growled and hurled himself at Yellowfang, forcing her onto her belly. Yellowfang didn't even attempt to struggle against his thorn-sharp claws. Firepaw saw with alarm that her eyes were glazed with sadness. Those kits were weak, Brokenstar hissed, bending his face toward Yellowfang's ear. They would have been no use to ShadowClan. If I hadn't killed them, some other warrior would have. A wail of grief went up from a black and white ShadowClan queen. Brokenstar ignored her. I should have killed you when I had the chance, he spat at Yellowfang. It seems I must have some of my father's softness. I was a fool to let you leave ShadowClan alive. He lunged, teeth bared, ready to sink them into her neck. Firepaw was quicker. He jumped onto Brokenstar's back before he could clamp his jaws shut. Firepaw dug his claws into the matted tabby fur and pulled him off the exhausted queen, flinging him to the edge of the clearing. Brokenstar twisted around in mid-air to land on his feet and looked into Firepaw's eyes, spitting viciously. Don't waste your time, apprentice. I've shared dreams with StarClan. You will have to kill me 9 times over before I join them. Do you really think you're strong enough for that? His eyes glowed with confidence and defiance. Firepaw stared back at him. His belly tightened. Brokenstar was a clan leader. How on earth could he expect to defeat him? But the watching ShadowClan cats had begun to pad slowly toward their defeated leader, snarling and hissing with hatred. They were battered and half-starved, but Brokenstar was outnumbered, and he seemed to realize this with a nervous flick of his tail. He crouched and backed away through the bushes. His eyes glittered menacingly from the shadows, his gaze finding Firepaw through the crowd. This isn't over, apprentice, he hissed, before he turned and vanished into the forest after his broken warriors. Firepaw looked to Whitestorm. Should we go after them? He meowed. The warrior shook his head. I think they got the message that they are not welcome here. Nightpelt, the ShadowClan warrior, nodded in agreement. Leave them. If they dare to show their faces here again, ShadowClan will be strong enough by then to tackle them alone. The rest of ShadowClan was huddled together in the ruins of their camp, as if numbed by the realization that their leader had gone. It will take time to rebuild this clan, Firepaw thought. The kits! Firepaw heard Greypaw's meow from a far corner of the clearing. He rushed over to his friend, Mousefur and Whitestorm bounding at his heels. As they approached, they could hear the pitiful mewling of kits coming from beneath a pile of leaves and twigs. Quickly, Greypaw and Mousefur dug down through the foliage until they had uncovered the missing ThunderClan kits at the bottom of a small pit. Are they okay? Demanded Whitestorm, his tail twitching with anxiety. They're fine, replied Greypaw. Most have only a few scratches, but that little tabby has a pretty nasty wound on his ear. Can you take a look, Yellowfang? The old she-cat was licking her own wounds, but at Greypaw's call, she raced to the side of the pit, where Greypaw had carefully deposited the tabby kit. Firepaw helped Greypaw to lift out the rest of the kits. The last one was gray, like the embers of an old fire. She mewled and squirmed as Firepaw placed her on the ground. Mousefur gathered all the kits to her and comforted them with licks and caresses. Yellowfang looked closely at the torn ear. We need to stop this bleeding, she meowed. Running Nose stepped out of the shadows. His forepaw was coated in a layer of cobwebs, which he silently passed to Yellowfang. She nodded her thanks and began to treat the kit's wound. Nightpelt approached the group of ThunderClan cats. You helped ShadowClan rid itself of a brutal and dangerous leader, and we are grateful. But it is time you left our camp and returned to your own. I promise your hunting grounds will be free of ShadowClan warriors as long as we can find enough food in our own territory. Whitestorm nodded. Hunt in peace for 1 moon, Nightpelt. ThunderClan knows you need time to rebuild your clan. He turned to Yellowfang. And you, Yellowfang? He asked. Do you wish to return with us, or stay here with your old comrades? Yellowfang looked up at him. I will make the journey back with you. She glanced at a deep gash on Whitestorm's hind leg.
You will need a medicine cat for yourself as well as your kits.
Thank you, purred Whitestorm. He signaled to the ThunderClan cats with a sweep of his tail and led them out of the clearing. Mousefur and Willowpelt helped the kits, who stumbled along, exhausted and bewildered. Yellowfang walked close to the wounded tabby kit, lifting him by the scruff of his neck every time he slipped. Firepaw and Graypaw followed them through the brambles, past the camp scent line, and out into the forest. The moon was still rising in the quiet sky as the ThunderClan party began the long trudge home, while around them showers of brown leaves fluttered to the forest floor.